Hello and welcome to another one of my videos. In this one, I will tell you about the symbolism and meaning of Five of Swords in the Thoth deck. As usual, I will start with a description of the card, and then we will dive deeper into the symbolism of all of the elements that we can see here. I will list the meanings of this card in divination at the very end of the video, and the timestamp for when I start talking about that is shown below now, so you can jump there if you want. The first look at this card shows us that we are in trouble again. We had some rest and calm in the 4, but now in 5 we can see that another difficult time is looming over us. We have 5 swords meeting in the center of the card again, but this time each of the swords has a different hilt. They are also bent and damaged this time. We can see rose petals forming an inverted pentagram in the middle of the card, and the background here looks very chaotic. Those geometrical shapes are uneven and they look like they are falling apart. Let's hear how Crowley describes this card in the Book of Thoth. The hilts of the swords form the inverted pentagram, always a symbol of somewhat sinister tendency. Here matters are even worse. None of the hilts resembles any of the others, and their blades are crooked or broken. They give the impression of drooping. Only the lowest of the swords points upwards, and this is the least effective of the weapons. The rose of the previous card has been altogether disintegrated. The inverted pentagram in this deck is always a representation of matter ruling over spirit. And if we have a look at how the elements are distributed in the upright pentagram, we see that spirit is the first and the most important of them. Everything flows from it, and everything returns to the same place. And this system is in balance, and it brings happiness and fulfillment. If we invert it, we see that now the element of earth is the first one, and the whole system loses its flow. We start with matter, and we try to influence what is spiritual with what is material. And this causes problems and creates unhappiness. All of the swords in this card look different. There is no harmony here. Everyone is out for their own interests. The blades are drooping and they're damaged, so we see that nothing constructive can be accomplished here. The only straight blade pointing upwards is also the one that is most badly damaged. Crowley tells us that the petals forming the inverted pentagram are the remains of the rose that we saw in the 4 of Swords. And if we count these petals, we will see that there are 48 of them, with the last remaining one in the very middle of where the swords meet. I was talking about the symbolism of number 49 in detail in my previous video. Crowley said the rose represented social harmony. This number is also connected with meditation and being in this in-between state, between death and rebirth in another incarnation. As you probably remember from my video about the 2 of Swords, roses also symbolize a secret. So it's something that should stay between friends or lovers and should not be discussed with anyone else. So the destruction of the rose is the betrayal of that trust. It's a destruction of the peaceful state we were in, and it disrupts social harmony. If we compare the placements of the main elements in this card to the Tree of Life, we will notice that the hilts of the swords show us Gevurah, Hesed, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, all pointing to Tiferet and destroying it. So our very core and our balance is destroyed from all sides, and much like it was in the 3 of Swords. And this shows a very difficult situation where we can't seem to get any help. All forces are against us. We are now in the 5th Sephirah, Gevurah, connected with planet Mars and color red. Crowley explains it this way. Gevura, as always, produces disruption, but as Venus here rules Aquarius, weakness rather than excess of strength seems the cause of disaster. The intellect has been enfeebled by sentiment. The defeat is due to pacifism. Treachery also may be implied. Gevura is where some of the structures built by Hesed need to be broken in order for us to move forward. It's a destructive force, but this destruction also very often serves a greater good. The martial influence here is quite weak, as the astrological attribution of the card is quite opposite in energy and doesn't support the fiery power of Mars. We are in the first decan of Aquarius, and the time frame associated with this decan is from the 20th of January until the 29th of January. This decan is the energy of Venus in Aquarius. Aquarius always looks ahead, always tries to imagine what could have been if the world was different. It's a very inventive sign. It has a lot of imagination and it loves to compare and understand things. It's a fixed air sign, so it has a tendency to be very firm in its convictions. And there can also be stubbornness. They know what they like, and it's very hard to change their mind. Sometimes there can also be a feeling of not belonging, being on the outside of what is happening. If we combine this energy with Venus, we can see that her social tendencies will be a bit drier here. Instead of keeping everything together, there will be more discernment and criticism. Venus is also responsible for how we approach relationships, and Aquarius energy in this respect is not very helpful. We will always be imagining that things could have been better, and this constant comparison of our reality with the imagined ideal could take a toll on any relationship, and of course, being a bit stubborn and having fixed convictions is also not helpful. Of course, the converse is also true. The emotional depth of Venus interferes with the intellectual idealism of Aquarius. It all creates a loop of feeling the emotion and then thinking about that feeling that leads to another emotional response. And that's why Crowley tells us that we can see weakness in this card. The sentiment is overwhelming our intellect and leads to bad decisions. We can't react in an appropriately strong way, so we have to lose. And of course, we also have an element of betrayal here. It comes from the destructive power of Mars that, combined with the energies of Venus and Aquarius, adds the element of fire into the mix. The energy of Venus is air and water. Aquarius is a fixed air sign, and we are in the suit of swords, so we have even more air added through this influence. And there is no earth here, so it's difficult to find anything concrete in this energy. And we might say that in this card, it is really all in our head, because the element of air is connected with our thoughts and intellect. There is just enough water to create an emotional trigger and just enough fire to start something destructive, but ultimately we can take over control of the situation if we only focus on what is tangible, on what's certain, and on what we know is a fact. And this card shows us that fear of something happening causes more damage than the actual event happening. Sometimes our fear of betrayal will bring exactly what we fear into our lives. Fear also stops us from experiencing happiness. We sometimes let it take over our love life completely, and it can only lead us to further disappointments. Now I'm going to tell you a bit about how to interpret this card in divination. A Five of Swords shows us defeat, This card shows loss and betrayal. It can show gossip. It can also show cowardly cruelness. When we see it in our spread, we know that things will not go our way, and there might be someone working against us in secret. This card also shows that our actions are based on fear. In spirituality, this card can show that someone else's energy can be interfering with our own, and we should cleanse ourselves and strengthen our defenses. We need to remember that other people's energy can only interfere with ours if we allow it. Fear and other destructive thoughts are lowering our overall vibrations, and therefore they're creating opportunities for the other energies to cause us harm. If this card describes a person, this will be someone who has bad intentions towards us. It could be someone who is talking behind our back, or someone who is planning to betray us. This person has a lot of fear in them, and this is causing them to harm other people. In work-related readings, the Five of Swords can show a toxic workplace environment where there is a lot of jealousy, competition, and you can't really trust anyone. In relationship context, this card often shows people who are not ready to be in a new relationship because they have been hurt very badly in the past, and they still have the fear that this will happen again. This fear will be causing them to sabotage the new relationship, and they can be really jealous, suspicious, and they might need constant reassurance that everything is okay. They might also be unavailable emotionally because they will be so afraid of getting hurt again that they won't be able to open up to anyone. If this card shows up in your reading as an obstacle, you need to have a look at how you deal with fears in your life. Do you feel like everyone is against you and that people are talking behind your back? Maybe it's time to look at the facts of what is really happening and stop trying to blame people around you for what is within your power. As advice, the Five of Swords will be inviting you to take this sly and cunning approach to the situation at hand. This matter will go better for you if you don't disclose your true intentions because someone else might take advantage of you. In the situation you are in, it's every man for themselves, so don't trust anyone and expect betrayal. I think it's important to mention here that when it comes to this card, it not only shows what is happening, so for example that you have been betrayed or that someone is spreading rumors about you, but it also shows the reason for why this is happening. And this is all because of fear. Fear causes people to behave in a bad way in relationships, and it also causes them to hurt other people and be passive-aggressive or cruel in a cowardly way. And we have different situations in our lives, and it's not always possible to safeguard ourselves from people driven by fear, but we can always manage our own fears to make sure that we don't become ruled by them. And it is very difficult, especially if someone has been hurt in the past, but we need to keep opening up and we need to keep the faith in the goodness of people. We always need to take care of ourselves first, but then, if we have enough strength, we also need to take care of the others. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like the video, leave a comment, and of course, subscribe to my channel. I would like to thank everyone who is already supporting the channel. I appreciate your help very, very much. And if you want to start helping, please consider maybe a one-time PayPal donation, or you can also become a patron of the channel for just €3 per month. So it is a bit like getting me a cup of coffee to say thanks once a month. If you consider how much you could be paying for a course on tarot online, this is really a good value option. Every little bit of your support and every donation is great help and is greatly appreciated. All links are in the video description below. Once again, thank you everyone for today, and I will see you in the next video about the Six of Swords very soon. Thank you, bye!